Jake Paul defeats Anderson Silva via unanimous decision, and might I add, a decision that I did not disagree with. It's brought out some notable boxing pundits and trainers to, sprinkle some praise onto Paul as far as legitimacy is concerned. Is Jake Paul a real boxer? Well, yeah, I watched him several times show up and compete in the ring, the squared circle, if you will, under the Marcus Queensberry rules, and get paid to do it. So yes, he is a real boxer. Is Jake Paul a real legit professional boxer? Hell no. I'm going to break that down right now. But first, that's right, roll that intro. What's up, guys? It's your boy Marcel back with another one. Yeah, today I'm going to break down the facade of professional boxing, fake Paul, Jake Paul. Yes, the man is a real boxer because he boxes. But is he a real professional boxer? I really don't think so. And I'm going to tell you right now why I feel that way. And let me know in the comments what you think. And I'm just going to break this down really fast and get out of here. Firstly, let me say, the thing that people say about Jake Paul is, hey, fight a real boxer. Fight a real boxer. And these fights go down and they play out. And, the narrative is, what are they going to say now? What are they going to say now? Well, a lot of you guys don't realize this, but they know what they're going to say now after those. They're just putting it out there. They're putting it out there, getting ahead of it, if you will. What they're going to say now is what they've been saying. Fight a real boxer. A real boxer. And what does Jake Paul and his team say every time that question is brought up? Well, you didn't see Canelo or Floyd or, plug in boxer's name. Who did they fight in their fifth professional fight? What was their record? Blah, 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 blah. Yes, that works against casual fans. Casual fans that just hear those words and take them at their surface face value. But I'm not a casual fan. I'm a hardcore fan, all right? So when Jake Paul says, oh, who did Canelo, who did Floyd, who did blah, blah, blah fight in their fifth fight? You know what? It doesn't matter what their record was and whom they fought, because who they fought is a boxer who trained boxing for many years and had what, Marcel? That's right, an amateur career filled with many, many bouts. So is that the same as saying, hey, I'm fighting this guy here? Who'd you fight? Who'd you fight? Let's be real. You're pretty much fighting amateurs, amateur boxing, because you've had 6 fights and all of them made their professional debut against you. Well, not all of them. Obviously, Woodley had a rematch, making that his second fight. And Anderson had some fights before him. But I'll get to that. Because I'm not going to allow most valuable promotions to pull the wool over our eyes any longer. Or your eyes, should I say. Because I was never fooled. Is there time for Jake to do more? To gain more respect in the eyes of boxing fans who just don't care to show up and watch him compete? Of course. But it's going to take the right opponent. It's going to take a legit opponent. Again, I said Jake Paul is 6-0. And he always says, well, who did this guy fight in their fifth fight, their sixth fight, their fourth fight? Irrelevant. Boxers fought boxers with tons of experience. They might not have been the best boxers. Hell, they weren't. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But they had tons of experience regardless of what their professional record was, because that was preceded by oftentimes a very, very lengthy amateur career. So that dispels that defense mechanism put in place every time someone says, hey, Jake, you're a boxer, box a boxer. Now, what has this whole show been pretty much? I'll tell you. It's been Jake Paul versus retired athletes. And no, Anisan Gibb, the pre-diabetic gas station attendant, the YouTuber, was not a retired athlete. What he was is just a YouTuber who wanted to get into boxing similar to KSI, Logan Paul, Jake Paul. It's been done. It's currently being done. Hell, KSI, since I brought him up, he fought multiple guys in one night. Want to know why? Because it is a train wreck. It's a freak show. But the man's got enough of a following that people showed up to witness it. I was not among those who I was not among those who bared witness to that. I don't even know what to call it because I didn't watch it. But back on point. Jake versus retired athletes. I already dispelled Aneeson Gibb. So what was his next fight? Retired NBA player Nate Robinson, who was never known for his size or authority. No, he was known because he was such a small man who could jump out of the damn gym. Jump out of the gym. Go back and watch his highlights. Was he known for throwing a punch? No. And we saw what played out in the ring. The man looked like he had never been in a fight in his life. I'm just saying, you don't play boxing. You think you can fight? Don't go box, because obviously this ain't a street fight. It's not a bar fight. It is a sport, a real sport. Okay? So Nate Robinson got him out of the way. The fight that should have gotten Jake Paul legitimacy, or so they hoped, was Ben Askren. Why? Ben Askren was a multiple-time MMA world champion. Well, MMA is MMA. And you don't exactly have to knock someone out. You don't even have to be good at striking per se if an element of your game was so dominant that it made up for your deficiencies in the other aspects of the fight. Well, Ben Askren wrote that to a tremendous undefeated career and picked up some hardware along the way before, joining the UFC, coming back from retirement, and, the wheels fell off. Well, when Ben Askren stepped in the ring with Jake Paul, fresh off of hip surgery, a guy that, if you put him in a fist fight, probably wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, definitely not known for his hands, no one was weary of the man's hands. The man was a pure wrestler, and that's an understatement. Won the Hodge Award in college, best wrestler in the damn country. Did he win the Golden Gloves? No. Didn't win the Golden Gloves because his hands are copper, and probably lower than that. But copper was, something lower than gold that I just plugged in there. You get it, though. The man's hands are not registered. But he got in there with Jake Paul because it was a cash grab. You're getting paid more than you have your entire MMA career. Why would you not take that fight? And why wouldn't Jake take that fight? Ben Askren's 38 years old right now. Done with his career. Fresh off of surgery. Things didn't go well in the UFC. Fastest knockout in history. Caught a knee by Jorge Masvidal. Yeah, game bred. Got his ass out of there pretty quick. Super necessary. So, Ben Askren's out of there. And people thought, oh, well, he won one championship. He won Bellator championship. There's no way Jake Paul beats him. Again, guys, he did not win those championships throwing hands. I don't think he ever knocked anyone down off of their feet his entire career. And if you look at his record, you might see some KOs, some TKOs rather. Don't be confused. That's because the guys were down on the ground because he was so dominant. He was ragdolling boys. And he was able to strike them to the point where the referee stepped in because they weren't necessarily intelligently defending themselves any longer. TKO. So don't be confused by those TKOs. Askren is not a killer striking-wise, okay? Not by any stretch. So Tyron Woodley, you're thinking, oh, well, I saw him knock out Dong Young Kim, Josh Koscheck, knocked out Robbie Lawler, won the title, went in there and knocked down Darren Till and then submitted him. The man's got hands. Yeah, he's got power for MMA. You come in an All-American wrestler, you come in there, you are undefeated in your run through Strikeforce, but then you meet your match with a guy that just has better hands than you. Better striker than you. The 7-time king of pancrase. I'm talking about Nate the Great Marquardt. Yeah, dispatched Woodley's ass. Disgusting. And it was a lot. No, I don't know. I don't know if it was worse. They were both disgusting. When Paul knocked out Woodley face down, that was pretty damn bad. But to get knocked out right there in the height of your prime, as disgustingly as Nate Marquardt did, I'm going to say that's worse because you're not dealing with a guy that's, at the last end of his run. I mean, at the last leg of his run. You're dealing with a guy that's right in his prime, undefeated, and he gets starched disgustingly against the cage by Nate Marquardt. Okay, so a wrestler with power in his hands, fresh off of getting dominated by Kamaru Usman, fresh off of getting dominated by Colby Covington, fresh off of getting rocked and choked out, strangled by Vicente Luque. Okay, so he's done with the UFC. He's in there with Jake Paul. Everybody's like, oh, Woodley can crack. Woodley can crack. But they're forgetting Woodley don't throw. Woodley doesn't throw his hands. He just don't. The volume just isn't there. So, I mean, we saw that. We saw that in the fight. He barely threw punches. There was no way he was going to win that fight on points. Just wasn't going to happen. You don't throw. If you're not throwing, you're not winning. You're not connecting, you're not winning. And then the second fight, he comes in with that same defensive strategy. Easy for Jake Paul and his team, who are, they're smart guys. So it's easy for them to look at that tape and be like, okay, where are the holes in his defense? Where can we expose him? Second fight, boring as hell, but at least he knocked him out. Boxing fans still didn't legitimize Jake Paul. Because why? He's not boxing a real boxer. So bring in Anderson Silva. And everybody's big upping Anderson Silva because he's an MMA GOAT, a legend. MMA, completely different sport. You bring the greatest kickboxers over to MMA. All the fights start on the feet. So you think this guy is going to be outstanding. Who am I talking about? He just fought last weekend. And I can't even remember his name. So I'm not going to try. But if it comes to me, I'll say it. Kickboxer. Decorated as hell. Feared. Coming over to the UFC. Matched up with a, mid-level MMA fighter who's bricked up. And the kickboxer says, oh, I'm going to do this. There's so many holes. I'm going to do this. MMA guy, this is my sport. They go back and forth. What happens? The MMA guy knocks him the hell out. Different sport. So, that being said, and that really happened. Anderson Silva. They're bigging him up because he's got hands. He's boxed. Everybody's saying, oh, well, he did lose his first boxing match ever, either his first or second. He got stopped or retired, whatever you have. He won the second, then had a tremendously great MMA career. Okay, MMA career comes to a close, and he doesn't really have a graceful exit from it. Okay, he's getting beat and stopped, whatnot. But he goes over to boxing, and everybody's like, oh, Anderson Silva is extending his career. Good for him. And it is good for him. Hell, it's great for him. But let's be real. He had 2 boxing matches around 1998, went 1-1, and ultimately decided to go MMA. And that was a great choice for him, as he is perceived by most as the GOAT. But let's break down his exit from MMA, post-MMA, his boxing career, post-MMA. So he gets in there first with Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. And I'm going to tell you right now, first I was like, well, Julio's boxed his whole life. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see Anderson, who's been getting, for lack of better terms, dispatched and demolished in the MMA, all the way out. Now he's getting in there with a life boxer. Well, it turns out Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. was not only washed as hell, he was overrated to begin with. He was a weight bully. Just like Jake Paul's a weight bully. Yeah, because Askren, career 170-pounder. Woodley, career 170-pounder. Anderson, a career 185-pounder. He's fought at 205. He's really close to Jake Paul's weight. But he's 48 years old, 47 years old. He's old as hell. Woodley's 40. Askren's 38. So, obviously, there is a lining here, that goes in the favor of Team Paul. And that's fine. It's his show. Kind of. Anderson Silva knocked out Tito Ortiz, who should have never been in a boxing ring to begin with.
The devil's here, people. It's disgusting what's going on. Like I say, I'm gonna save my children. It's my life. This is what I live for, is my children. Once again, my name and my word.
He knocks out another guy. I think his last name was Machado, a smaller guy. Nobody knows him for good reason. Anderson got his ass out of there. He did what the hell he was supposed to do. Okay? Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., to circle back to him, washed as hell. And even when he wasn't washed, competed at a much lower weight class than Anderson did. Hell, he fought Canelo Alvarez on Cinco de Mayo. You think Anderson Silva and Canelo Alvarez are in the same weight class? They're not. I mean, it's not far. I mean, now, because Canelo's, moving up. He's fought Bivol, whatnot. But obviously, he wasn't successful against Bivol. Why? Because weight matters. Size matters. You take two boxers with the same or similar abilities, and one's a lot bigger than the other one, I'm going with the bigger guy. The punches are going to be harder. The smaller guy might be faster. Might have more cardio, but the bigger guy is going to land the more significant strikes that'll have the judges, marking 10-9 in his favor at the end of the rounds. Nate Diaz. Everybody's praising his boxing. They're saying, if this is 12 rounds, Jake's in trouble because he doesn't have the cardio. And that might be true. That might be fucking true. But at the end of the day, Nate Diaz, whom's trained with sparred with the undefeated great in Andre Ward, is still a career 155 pounder, 155. Yes, he's fought at 170 pounds. Has he ever fought at 185 pounds? No. Has he ever fought above 175 pounds in the UFC? That's right. No. And another thing about Nate Diaz, in MMA, he's never beat any elite fighters at 170 pounds. All of his best wins, 155 pounds. He didn't beat Jorge Masvidal. He didn't beat Dong Young Kim. He didn't beat Rory McDonald. You get the point? When he goes up there, when he goes up weight and fights the bigger guys, he doesn't fare too well. His best work is at 155 pounds. Now juxtapose that with the fact that he's potentially Jake Paul's next fight. Well, we've already seen Jake Paul weight bully, 40-year-olds and 40-year-olds in Askren and Woodley, 38 and 40 respectively. They were career 170 pounders, like I said. We saw what happened to them. Weight, size matters. Bisping said it because it's true. Now you put Nate Diaz in there. Will it matter? Nate Diaz gets hit a lot. He does. People say, you won't have to worry about guys kicking him in the legs, blah, blah, blah. At the end of the day, Nate Diaz, for all intents and purposes, might be a better boxer than Jake Paul. But there's a reason you don't see Canelo Alvarez signing up to fight Tyson Fury. You don't see that. And you saw what happened when he went up to cruiserweight. He lost. It happened. So with that being said, Nate Diaz is a humongous fight. The man has a humongous fan base. And I'm sure fans will show up in droves, that they will buy the pay-per-views, the whole nine. Because at the end of the day, this is Jake versus MMA. The crowd at the Anderson Silva fight, MMA fans. The boxing fans, weren't really there. This was an MMA show. The MMA fans showed up to support Jake Paul, to support Anderson Silva in hopes that he would defeat Jake Paul. As you could see when they popped when he came out. You saw they booed Jake Paul. This was not a pro Jake Paul crowd. It wasn't. Even when they showed cameos of fighters in the crowd, huge pops for the MMA fighters. Couple of boxers showed up. Crowd was kind of indifferent when they showed him. Who's that guy? Because this is an MMA crowd. But best believe, if Nate Diaz fights Jake Paul, it'll be a predominantly MMA crowd. Yes, Jake Paul has a huge fan base. He was on YouTube, Disney, whatever. But do they really like boxing? Are they sticking around to watch the other boxing matches? I don't think they are. I don't even think they're really showing up for his fights thus far. Yes, Anison Gibb was great. Nate Robinson was great. Oh, now you're fighting Ben Askren. Okay, do we really like boxing? Do we really like seeing this? These guys are your YouTube Disney fans. They're not combat sport fans, so their palate is not equipped to take in all this combat, the brutality. So how long are they really going to show up? I don't know, because I'm not them. I'm a hardcore fan that always shows up. The fight, Anderson Silva, Jake Paul, less than 300K buys. And people are saying, oh, well, it tanked. It tanked. Well, that's about what the big upper echelon guys in MMA, that's about where their buys are. So it's not coincidental to me, because like I said, this was an MMA show anyways. This shows that the Hasim Rahman Jr., although it was intriguing, probably would have tanked a lot worse. The second Woodley fight tanked. And what was the excuse? Well, it was supposed to be Tommy Fury, and this one tanked, so they say. And then what's the excuse? Oh, well, they stepped in because they were saying they might pull the fight because Anderson Silva said he got knocked out in training. Whatever. The fight did what it did, and I feel like it did what it was going to do anyways. So, with that being said, Jake Paul is a celebrity boxer who is competing in pro bouts and getting paid for it. You want to say, if Teddy Atlas comes out and says, oh, well, Jake Paul is legit, does that mean I have to say it? No. And I'm not going to say it, because he's not a legitimate professional boxer. He's a legit boxer, an amateur boxer. This is his amateur career. He did not have an amateur career. Who else didn't have an amateur career? Aneeson Gibb, Nate Robinson, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, Anderson Silva. All of his opponents didn't have amateur careers, because they're all amateurs. All of them are amateurs when it comes to boxing. That's just the facts. So with that being said, Jake Paul is a celebrity boxer. He's not a legitimate pro boxer. That's why the boxing fans and pundits aren't even showing up for the Jake Paul fights at this point. You think I'm hating? Well, if you think I'm hating, put this in perspective. Aaron Carter, Lamar Odom, hooked it up. They hooked it up in the boxing ring and they got paid for it. Are they pro boxers? No? Why not? Supreme Patty, Blueface, all these rappers who are getting into boxing and getting paid to box, are they pro boxers? What do they have in common with Jake Paul? None of them are boxing boxers. Is that coincidental? No. That is the elephant in the room, and that is why Jake Paul is not a real boxer. Jake is a fake. Okay? It's funny. Every time he signs up to fight a real boxer, Tommy Fury, Hasim Rahman Jr., who's fighting Vitor Belfort, we'll get to that in another show. But those two guys, the real boxers, the guys with the amateur careers, the guys with the experience in boxing, what happens? It's always a problem. It's always a problem when Jake goes to box a real boxer. It's always a problem. Oh, well, this guy didn't make weight because the fucking extenuating circumstances I put him in and all the caveats I put in place for myself. Oh, he didn't meet those, so it's off. He didn't make weight. It's not on me. Oh, well, Tommy can't get into the country. So he ruined that for himself. Seems like every time he announces himself to fight an MMA fighter or another athlete or another YouTuber, things go off without a hitch. Coincidental? Again, I think not. But again, like I said before, Jake Paul, if you want to be considered a real professional boxer, you're just going to have to fight a professional boxer. One that has experience in boxing, an amateur career, something like that. But if you're out here saying, oh, what are they going to say now? You know what they're going to say now because you know what's going on. It's your game. It's your show. But I tell you what, I'm not sure Jake really wants to be a professional boxer, because the only real professional boxer that he's calling out is an unrealistic opponent in Saul Canelo Alvarez, who in a million years would never fight Jake Paul, and he knows that. He knows it. So guys, you guys can make the decision for yourself. Like I said, I'm a junkie for combat sports, boxing, MMA, kickboxing, the whole nine. All I'm saying is that I show up to watch because it all intrigues me. But I'm not going to stamp this guy as a real boxer until he boxes a real boxer. Not an old, retired MMA fighter who washed out after losing X amount of fights. Not a basketball player who's never fought in his life. And definitely not another YouTuber who is half the size of you. Okay, so fight a real boxer. You're able to pick the venue, pick the weight, pick how many rounds, pick how big the gloves are. You got all the power because you're not being regulated by the WBC, WBA. You don't have promoters like Top Rank or PBC or anything like that. Nobody's regulating you. So you're able to fight boxers outside of your weight class. That you outsize tremendously. And when you don't, you pick Anderson Silva, who people respect, but he's damn near 50. So at the end of the day, if you want legitimacy, Jake Paul, box a real boxer. And that's it. Until next time, I'm out. And you guys, thanks for watching. Stay frosty.